It may be lonely at times where it's hard to, you have to find your people that you can relate to, that you can ask questions to, whether they are still playing sport or not. Whether it's another mom, another dad, somebody that you can lean on for support, guidance, just confidence when you're having a hard day or hard moment. And there's a lot of those as a new parent, but just to be on this journey together is so special. And I think for me, what's also so special is just for him to grow up and know a world where women's and men's hockey is treated equally and looked at equally. And I think he sees that every day. And but yeah, no, I just think my advice to other aspiring parents who are elite level athletes is that you can do it, and just surround yourself with those who are going to help you get there. It may feel like a small group at first, but they're there, and you'll realize quickly who they are and how they can help you, and you can return the favor down the line as well.
Speaking of equality in sports, in 2019, Coyne Schofield was the first woman to compete in the NHL All-Stars skills competition. According to her Team USA bio, she placed 7th out of 8 contestants in the fastest skater contest. And here's a look at Coyne's Olympic and World Championship track record. She made her Olympic debut at the 2014 Games in Sochi, snagging a silver medal. Next time around in Pyeongchang, the team won gold, defeating Canada 3-2 in shootouts. In Beijing, coming out of the pandemic in 2022, Coyne Schofield captained the team, leading Team USA to another finals appearance, finishing with a silver medal. Now to her World Championship experience. Coyne Schofield has competed on this stage since 2011. Team USA medaled each year, snagging 7 gold medals and 4 silver. While Coyne consistently serves in a leadership role, she says every person on the team, in every capacity, has made Team USA's success possible.
Talk to me about your teammates and how much they mean to you.
Oh, my teammates, they mean everything. I mean, that's what makes hockey so special, is that it's a team sport. We have 30 players here, and every day we wake up, we're working together to achieve a common goal, and that's to win a gold medal at the Olympic Games. Regardless if we're there or not there, every day we wake up, we have to be the best that we can be individually, so that collectively, when we come together, we're the greatest team in the world.
Outside of Team USA, Coyne Schofield plays for and captains the Minnesota Frost in the Professional Women's Hockey League, or PWHL. She played her college career at Northeastern University in Boston, leading the Huskies to their first ever NCAA tournament berth.
I'm going to end with something a little more fun on the lighter note.
Okay.
Regardless of any prior experience or skill that you have, what other Winter Olympic sport would you want to compete in?
Figure skating. No question. Figure skating. I love figure skating. Yes. Most people know I love figure skating. I started in figure skates actually. Just wasn't what my brother was doing almost 30 years ago. He was doing hockey. My parents didn't play hockey. They just stumbled upon an ice arena and signed him up for hockey. And so I wanted to do what he does. I wanted to do what he was doing.
Yeah.
And so. But my parents did put me in figure skates to start, and I love figure skating. Yeah, I would say figure skating. I think my strength would be speed skating,
Right.
but if we were talking about strengths and weaknesses, I think I would love to do figure skating. Yeah.
Welcome to the 2822 Now studio app in downtown Wilkes-Barre, Luzerne County. My name is Andy Mahalchik, lead I-Team reporter here at 2822 News. If you've followed our streaming, the Mahalchik Files, over the last several months, and they're on our app right now, you'll see a lot of the stories I focus on are stories that were high profile, a lot of interest, shocking, disturbing, you name it, cases that got a lot of coverage, but also deserve maybe a second or third look, to look back at where are they now, some of the nuances in the investigations. My podcasts have included, as you know, if you check it out, The Mob in Northeastern PA, past and present, Cold Case, Kids for Cash, UFO sightings over Pennsylvania, and a whole list of other cases that we're taking a deeper dive in. And that's what the Mahalchik Files are all about. Today, we're talking about the case of the murder of Robert Curley of Wilkes-Barre back in 1991. His wife, Joanne Curley, pled guilty to poisoning him slowly and methodically, causing his death. Again, he died in 1991. We'll talk about that case. She pled guilty to third-degree murder, served time. She's now released from prison. But the case really today, you mentioned the name Bob Curley and thallium poisoning. People in Northeastern PA remember it, and if you Google it, you'll see a gazillion stories, just too many even to count. And of course, this reporter at 2822 News did extensive coverage over the years, dramatic every step of the way. And today, I'm fortunate and so happy to say that I have the man who prosecuted the case, former Luzerne County District Attorney Peter Paul Olszewski joins us here in our 2822 Now studio. Peter, thank you for joining us here today.
Hi, Andy. Always great to be with you.
And, we're laughing because before we went to start streaming, we do this podcast, we were talking that Pete and I go so far back, it might be illegal. But number two, I probably have interviewed Peter Paul Olszewski, no kidding, more than anybody else in my career, 45, 50 years, because he's been a prosecutor, but also involved in so many cases and stories after even he left public office. But Peter Paul, we talk about, and the fact of the matter is, and we also talked to the sister of Robert Curley. Mm-hmm. Her interview is coming up shortly. We talked about how that horrible death of Bob Curley because of thallium poisoning is still haunting her and her family. And I guess her mom and dad and family passed away, and knowing with that pain. So very quickly, Pete, just some of your background bio. I know that's at length. We only have an hour. So just some of your background, how you became Luzerne County DA, and then a judge after that.
Sure. I graduated from law school in 1984, came to Wilkes-Barre, and was in the general practice of law. In 1986, I was fortunate to become an assistant district attorney of Luzerne County for 2 years. In 1991, I ran for the office of district attorney. I was elected in 91 and reelected again in 1995. So I had a great 8 years as the DA of Luzerne County. Was really a hands-on prosecutor. I tried a lot of cases in the courtroom. And then in 1999, I was fortunate to be elected judge of the Court of Common Pleas of Luzerne County. I was on the bench for 10 years, serving 9 of those 10 years in the criminal division. I retired in 2009, and I've been in private practice with my wife, attorney Melissa Scartelli, for the past 15 years now, doing medical malpractice and personal injury cases and some criminal defense work as well.
It's interesting, Peter Paul, when you look back at your legal career and the depth of it. So you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. But this case of Bob Curley, we're going to run several stories that we did back in the day. But just a brief synopsis, this Bob Curley poisoning, she pled guilty to third-degree murder.
Correct.
Give us the basic facts of the case.
Well, back in, actually the facts begin before I was elected DA. The case began in August of 1991. Bob Curley was married to Joanne Curley. They resided in Wilkes-Barre. He was an electrician for Morgan Electric. And in August of 1991, he began working on a remodeling of the chemistry lab at Wilkes University. And shortly after that, he became rather ill with a number of symptoms, including awful abdominal pain, vomiting, nauseousness. He was admitted to the Wilkes-Barre General Hospital for 2 separate stays, totaling about 3 weeks. His symptoms continued to deteriorate. He was diagnosed initially by Wilkes-Barre General as having Guillain-Barré syndrome, which was not the correct diagnosis. His family then, most importantly his sister and mother, insisted that he be transferred to the Hershey Medical Center, which is a leading poison control center in Pennsylvania. He was there for 10 days. His health continued to deteriorate, and it wasn't until 2 days before his death that Hershey finally diagnosed him as suffering from thallium poisoning. Thallium is a heavy metal. In the 1940s, 50s, it was the principal ingredient in rat poison. And in the late 60s, the EPA actually banned thallium from being used in rat poison because too many young children were accidentally poisoning themselves,
getting near it, right.
Getting the rat poison, eating it, and dying. And in any event, about 2 days after the diagnosis at Hershey, Bob died an awful, painful, terrible death because he passed in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania. Dauphin County coroner had jurisdiction. They did an autopsy, which ultimately was horribly incomplete. inadequate, unprofessional, and it was about 3 weeks later. So the law enforcement investigation into the homicide of Bob Curley didn't begin for 3 weeks after his death. Obviously, in 99.9% of our homicide investigations, they begin immediately. And there was this 3-week delay, and off the investigation went. And in January 6th of 1992, I came into office. I was sworn into office, and sitting there was an unsolved open homicide case.
And I remember, Pete, when you came into office, and we had been talking to Bob Curley's friends and family, and they felt no one was coming right out and saying, we think Joanne Curley has something to do with it. But they had suspicions that there was something not right here. He was a healthy guy. They just didn't believe it was a medical death, that it was, even before he died, that why is he sick? They felt something was wrong, but they didn't know where to go about it. Excuse me. We're going to run a package on, because there's so many twists and turns with this story. And I know there's been a lot of national attention over it. And correct me if I'm wrong, this thallium poisoning with this case, wasn't this one of the first nationwide? It caught the attention of investigators all over the country. There was one, I think, one or two in Florida at the time. Do you remember? This is one of the leading cases of thallium that really caught the attention and say, hey, this kind of stuff is going on, or could be happening in your area.
It was one of the first thallium poisoning cases in the United States, but it was, in fact, the second case ever to utilize a toxicology procedure known as segmental analysis. It was a new toxicology procedure where toxicologists, if they had hair samples or fingernail samples from the deceased, they would be able, and thallium is a heavy metal, that's the type of element it is, toxicologists would be able to detect the presence of thallium in the victim's fingernails or hair samples, and two, they would then be able to determine how many times the person ingested thallium, and number three, would be able to actually put a date on each ingestion based upon the growth rate of the hair or the nails.
And it's amazing. That was, again, back in the 90s. I
Correct.
can't even imagine now what the technology will show. Let's run one of our initial stories. This is Joy Nardone, our producer. Let's run the story we did when Joanne Curley was arrested. We'll listen to it, Pete, and we'll comment. Again, there's so many twisted turns. There was an exclamation involved here, all kind of things. And there's a lot to talk about. Let's show that first package of him at her arrest, Joey. Joanne Curley is brought to magistrate's court, handcuffed in the back of a state police cruiser. A mob of reporters and onlookers surround the car, hoping to catch a glimpse of the woman police say killed her husband in cold blood. Investigators say Joanne Curley systematically poisoned her husband with thallium, a chemical once used to make rat poison.
The affidavit indicates that this has been a long-term exposure beginning in October, November of 1990.
It allegedly continued for the next 11 months until Curley died a horrible, painful death in September of 1991. Detectives always suspected that somebody was spiking Curley's iced tea with thallium, but where and how? Much focus was placed on Curley's co-workers. It turned out Curley may have provided the answers when his body was exhumed in 1994. Sophisticated tests pointed the finger of blame directly at his widow.
That investigation, including the sophisticated forensic analysis, leads to the inescapable conclusion that today's action is appropriate and warranted.
Police say Joanne Curley spiked her husband's iced tea containers and even gave him a dose while he lay dying in the hospital. Arrest papers indicate that he knew something was happening. 5 days before he died, he grabbed a nurse by the arm and pleaded, "Please help me. My wife is trying to kill me. She is not as she seems." The prosecution says it will seek the death penalty for Joanne Curley. In Luzerne County, Andy Mahalchik, 28 Eyewitness News Sunrise. Okay, a very young Peter Polishevsky and a really young Andy Mahalchik. We're about the same age, so. But you look back at that, when you think about it, And all the details, Pete, start coming back. You know, talking to the nurse in the hospital, he knew something was wrong there. But no one at that point, you're saying investigators really didn't pick up on it, correct? I think the family has suspicions, but, and we're going to hear from Bob Curley's sister in a little bit. They suspected her as time moved on. But what's your reaction when you see that story?
Well, it obviously brings back a lot of memories about the investigation and the entire process. You know, you're right. From the word go, since the date of Bob's passing, many family members and friends always suspected that Joanne was involved. But the problem, however, is murder suspects can't be arrested based upon a neighbor's suspicion. We need evidence. And initially, investigators were thrown a terrible curveball by the medical staff at Hershey Medical Center. I went down and personally spoke to at length with the chief pathologist, the chief toxicologist, and Bob's treating physician. And the investigators and I interviewed them for hours. And their unanimous, strong, unwaverable conclusion is that A, Bob Curley certainly was never poisoned here at the Hershey Medical Center. He was never poisoned at Wilkes-Barre General Hospital. And we believe he was only given one dose of thallium. All that information was 100% wrong, false, and incorrect. But at the time, they were the people treating Bob. They were the people who had watched him, treated him, analyzed him in the hospital, and investigators were obviously led to believe that those were the correct facts in the case, and they weren't.
We're going to take a short break, Peter Polashevsky. We're talking about the poisoning death in 1991 of Robert Curley of Wilkes-Barre. And you'll see a lot of video running different company, where he worked at a company. You'll see the arrest, the exhumation video. There's so many moving parts to this ongoing story, but still, it's part of it's a sad story in northeastern Pennsylvania. And his family is still dealing with it, of course. You know, I always tell a lot of our younger reporters, Peter Paul, and you as a prosecutor, I'm sure you have conversation with your prosecutors as well over the years, that while the case may be moved away and we move on to a point, we never forget, we move on to other stories. These kind of murders happen, those families' lives are changed forever. They'll never have their loved one around a table again.
It's an indelible mark
Right.
On the family. Bob Curley was loved by every one of them, by his sister, by his brother, by his mother, and they all witnessed Bob die a horrible, terrible, painful, excruciatingly painful death. And it's something that they unfortunately will endure forever.
Okay, Peter Polashevsky, attorney Peter Polashevsky, former Luzerne County District Attorney, who really took this investigation by the bull by the horns and pushed it forward. We'll talk more about the investigation. We have a lot to talk about. We'll show you some more packages back from throughout the years on the Bob Curley investigation, poisoned by his wife, Joanne Curley, who pled guilty and served time in prison. Joe Nardone, my director, producer, let's take a short break. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to this edition of the Mahalik Files on the 2822 Now app. We're talking today about the murder of his wife. She didn't beat him or stab him or shoot him. She poisoned him to death with thallium, spiking his iced tea. He died a slow, horrible death. And we're talking to the man, the former Luzerne County District Attorney, who came into the case, really, was already in motion, and took over the case in 1992 when he became District Attorney. Peter Polashevsky, you and I have covered, I'm going to say, hundreds of cases. Not all murders, but many of them murders. When you came into office, I remember back then, we won't mention names of families and all, but there were 2 or 3 murders that happened like almost every weekend in January of 1992. And again, folks, murders back in Luzerne County and in NEPA in general, they were few and far between. Right. But you had like 2 or 3 murders already in progress, and this case was still hanging out there.
It was unbelievable. The day I took office, this Bob Curley case, of course, was totally unsolved. A murder case from the city of Wilkes-Barre against a gentleman by the name of O'Boyle, who was convicted of first-degree murder of his mother, was reversed and needed to be retried.
And that was in North Wilkes-Barre, correct?
That was in Wilkes-Barre City.
Up on Washington Street or something
Exactly
like that?
Right. Exactly right.
I'm like a new savant. My family says, don't talk about it anymore, Dad, or my wife, because these cases are so horrible, they just stand out.
That was Joseph O'Boyle,
Yep.
who killed his mother by stomping her to death with his work boots. We then had a terrible shooting homicide in the Back Mountain in Dallas, where we had a suspect at large and the use of a SWAT team to take him into custody
hotel.
and try him. A fellow by the name of Schwartz, Stephen Schwartz. I personally tried that case and got a first-degree murder conviction. And then shortly after that, we had the Todd Ray Tarselli case. At Kentucky Fried Chicken in Hazleton.
In that case, truth be told, I almost stopped. I live in my hometown's Hazleton. I almost stopped in on Kentucky Fried Chicken that night to get a late night snack. It was right before it closed, and it was too late. And I thought, well, it's already 10:15 or 9:30, whatever, and we just kept on going. The next morning, I found out that Mark Bunchak had been murdered by Todd Ray Tarselli.
Right.
And anyway, you talk about time, you just never know. That's why I always say, I'm not paranoid, I'm just realistic. You gotta keep your hand on the swivel. And that's what makes the Bob Curley case even more tragic and sad. You expect to go home, you live on Cleveland Street, right? And he's drinking iced tea that his wife's packing his lunch or whatever, and she's poisoning him with that. Expound on that. What would she do?
Well, what she would do is the home she lived in, she had inherited from her grandfather, and it was in the Miners Mills section of Wilkes-Barre. And back in those times, there was a rat problem in that section of the city. And her grandfather had rat poison in the basement, and ultimately that was the source of the thallium that she used to kill her husband, number one. And what happened is ultimately the investigators seized the thermoses and and lunchbox that Bob would take to work on a daily basis, and the crime lab, the Penn State Police crime lab, detected the presence of thallium around the brim of Bob's thermos that he used every day with iced tea. So the first premise then by the investigators is the vehicle to poison Bob was the thermos and in his tea. But they all worked from the premise that it was one ingestion. And that was completely false and untrue. And it was based on the information from Bob's medical providers in Hershey. It wasn't until I engaged Michael Bodden. Michael Bodden is, at that time, and still is, the world's most preeminent forensic pathologist. He's in New York City. I went to visit with Mike, with our team of investigators. He immediately asked if there were hair and fingernail samples from the initial autopsy, and there were not. And he said, without those samples, forensic analysis would be virtually impossible. So that required an exhumation of Bob. About 2 years after his death, we got court approval, got a court order. We brought Michael Bodden in to oversee the exhumation and the re-autopsy. We brought in the country's foremost forensic toxicologist, Fred Reeders from Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. They did the autopsy together. Mike was successful in getting the hair and nail samples. He was also successful in getting specimens of Bob's GI tract, his intestinal tract, and when those specimens went to Willow Grove, Dr. Reeders found not only the presence of thallium, he found that there had been multiple, 11 different ingestions over a period of about 11 months, with in multiple ingestions while Bob was a patient at Wilkes-Barre General Hospital, and a final ingestion while he was a patient at Hershey Medical Center. Unbelievable.
She wanted him dead.
She wanted him
And the
dead.
motive was money, right? Life insurance?
A $300,000 life insurance
So
policy.
what price you put on someone who trusts you and loves you? $300,000.
$300,000.
It could be like $1 billion. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, and then we're going to run Peter Paul another story from back in the day. We did so many, so we tried to pick out several stories we did as this case worked its way forward. We just looked at the arrest case. Joey Nardone, let's run the update package, okay? Joanne Curley had the motive and opportunity to kill her husband, so say prosecutors. Justice Martin Coyne agreed and sent her on to trial. Police have always said that she poisoned her husband Robert with thallium to collect some $296,000 in insurance money. Today, State Police Detective Robert McBride testified how they eliminated 25 other potential suspects, narrowing the field to those who had easy access to Robert Curley, both at home and at the hospital. That person, Joanne Curley. In a 1994 interview, he told Curley, "This eliminates everyone else but you." Curley, "Oh my, isn't that interesting?" McBride, "If everyone else is eliminated, who does that leave?" Curley responded, "I don't know. I know what you're thinking, but I didn't kill him. I didn't do anything." McBride also testified about a possible source of the thallium. Detectives learned about a jug of rat poison that Joanne Curley apparently had access to at her grandmother's home, located next to the Curley home on Cleveland Street. Curley's home was searched from top to bottom in October of 1991, but thallium was never found. Today, Robert Curley's family leaves the hearing with some sort of relief.
We're pleased with the results.
For now, Joanne Curley will remain behind bars pending a bail hearing. She does face a death penalty if convicted. And without a doubt, most courthouse observers agree that this could be one of the most sensational cases ever held in the area. In Luzerne County, Andy Michalczyk, 28 Eyewitness News. Well, little did we know, we hear about sensational, not because sensational in a good way, but just the details. Every story we look back at, and I'll be honest with you, it's bringing back memories of the details. And the arrest affidavit, the testimony, the preliminary hearing was so detailed. Let me tell you, this guy doesn't mess around. I mean, and I say that in a positive way because I've seen you operate and prosecute so many cases over the years. But this one, to come into office in January, it's already out there smoldering. Maybe, as you said, things being lost, not being done correctly, whatever, and to pick it up and get her to plead guilty, that's amazing in my opinion. So what did you think when you see that package, when you see the testimony in that preliminary hearing?
Right. We engaged a second world-renowned forensic pathologist from Pittsburgh, Dr. Cyril Wecht. Both Dr. Bodden and Wecht served on the Warren Commission who investigated the assassination of President Kennedy. And our plan was we hired both of them so the defense couldn't hire either. And I ultimately used Dr. Wecht to testify at the preliminary hearing where the charges were bound over, knowing that I would not call him at the trial, and instead we would use Dr. Bodden as our principal forensic expert at the trial. That was some good planning and great work by those pathologists. I think too that keep in mind what threw investigators, in addition to not having the hair and nail samples, by being misled by the medical persons.
That wasn't intentional.
No, it wasn't intentional. It was just they were wrong.
And because this was something so new, I'm not going to make excuses for them, but
Right.
It was something so new. you could almost see what happened, but then again, wasn't handled the right way.
Right. And then, so ultimately, the investigators went from believing that there was one ingestion to now having scientific evidence that there were multiple ingestions over an 11-month period. That changed everything. In your typical homicide investigation, the investigators follow the evidence, develop a suspect, and then develop evidence to prove whether the suspect is guilty or not. In this case, we had to do the opposite. We had to determine who was guilty by way of excluding people. So we had to take all the people who had contact with Bob Curley during that 11-month period and slowly and methodically exclude them. And ultimately, when Bob was a patient at the Wilkes-Barre General Hospital, we knew he was poisoned there. So we had to find out and determine how many people saw him, who they were, and see who we could eliminate. And then we knew that he was also poisoned at the Hershey Medical Center. So once again, the investigators determined every single person who came into contact with Bob at the Hershey Medical Center. And then we looked at, well, was there anybody who had contact with him at both facilities, at Hershey, at General, and earlier on in the earlier poisonings? And at the end of the day, we excluded everybody but one
Joanne
person.
Curley. And truth be told, we talked about this before we went to stream this podcast, was when this case started developing, the family started calling for a police investigation. There was some kind of discussion or controversy in the beginning when there was not an immediate police investigation, and the family would be calling us saying, "We think something's wrong." They didn't say Joanne. They said, "My brother died. Can you guys look into it?" They called here. I was in the newsroom. They called me, and I said, "Well, we'll check into it." Again, we didn't really know much about it. We had heard about this, but unlike today with social media, where there's bullhorns out there, people would go screaming from the top of the mountains and get your attention. Back then, it was if you would get a phone call or a tip off, or know the family, how would you know?
Right.
It could be natural causes. That night, after we started looking into it, I had called Joanne Curley on a landline phone, right? She answered the phone. I called the house. She answered the phone. I said, "I'm so-and-so. I'm sorry for your loss." She was very, seemed like upset, not crying and stuff, but just very solemn. And I said, can I talk to you tomorrow? As this case was starting to unfold, I said, "Can I come down up to your home in Cleveland Street and talk to you about this case, and what do you think happened?" And she said, "No, I really don't want to talk about it now. I'm too upset." It was like about a 5-minute conversation. I'm paraphrasing now. And that was it. But no one, I think at that point in the early days, no one really thought it would be an inside job, your wife.
Another initial problem is that during the very early stage of the investigation, before I came into office, the investigators had essentially dismissed her as the suspect. And she was not a suspect. And the investigators were focused, unfortunately, on Bob's coworkers from Wilkes University. And those guys, unfortunately, went under a lot of pressure, a lot of scrutiny for quite a while, unnecessarily. And ultimately, we proved that they were not responsible.
We're going to talk about that because he was working for Morgan Electric, a still established company, and he was working in a chem lab at Wilkes University or college at the time. And then it was almost by dumb luck was happening then. I don't think she knew. Did Joanne Curley plan it that way? Probably not. But ironically, he was working with other people in a lab, and there was joke that maybe someone played a practical joke on the guy, on Bob Curley. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back more with Peter Polishevsky, and we're going to hear from Susan Curley Grady, Bob Curley's sister. Joe Nardone, take it away. Welcome back. You're watching the Mahalashi Files. Andy Mahalashi, lead live team reporter here at 2822 News. We're talking about the case that gained nationwide attention, still talked about, especially in northeastern Pennsylvania, the thallium poisoning of Robert Curley by his wife, Joanne Curley. My special guest today, and I'm so honored to have you in our studio, Attorney Peter Polashevsky, who was the Luzerne County District Attorney at the time, who really came in on the case as it was already unfolding. We'll talk more with Peter Paul momentarily, but I also interviewed Bob Curley's sister, Susan Curley Grady, recently about the case. Again, he died in 1991, so you're talking 34, 35 years ago. Here's how that interview went with Susan. First of all, what do you remember about that time? After all these years, Joanne Curley served her time, the investigation, that kind of thing. What are you thinking about today when you think about that situation and your brother?
The thing that hurts me the most is watching Bobby suffer with the pain. He was in excruciating pain, and we just had to watch him. There was absolutely nothing we can do. And yet someone who did this to him knew exactly what was going on.
And Joanne Curley, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Joanne Curley, didn't she give him a lethal, what turned out to be the final dose of thallium at the hospital on food or pizza when the family was even nearby? In other words, she wanted to make sure he died?
Yes. She, kept giving him small doses to see what it would do to his body, apparently. Now, the final dose, it was a Sunday afternoon, and my brother David and his friend was there. I was there with my husband, and Joanne was there at the hospital. She actually waited until we all left the hospital, and then what she had admitted to was she went and got a soda from the vending machine. She took it back into his room, mixed the poison in, and gave him the poison to drink, made him drink it, and then threw the rest of the soda in the trash bin and went home and never looked back.
When did you realize, in the very beginning, and even as a reporter covering this, there was so much speculation and where he worked, and he was at the university, and at Wilkes he was working in a lab, and there was all kinds of speculation. When did you realize, did you always suspect her, or when did you realize this is homegrown murder?
We first realized that something was totally wrong with her attitude. It got very, very distant. She actually would come up to our house, my mother's house, and she sat and had dinner with us. And just the attitude from her, we felt something was wrong. We couldn't prove it, but we felt something was wrong. It was December 18th of that year, 1991. We went out for dinner. It was my mother's birthday. We came back to the house to have cake, and she and my other sister-in-law, Nancy Curley, were sitting at the kitchen table, and myself and David and Mom were sitting on a chair in the room. And the conversation did not go well. And they said, "Do you think Joanne did this?" And we all, my mother, myself, and my brother looked at each other, and we wanted to say yes, but we didn't say yes. And they knew something was wrong, and my sister-in-law, the two of them, walked out of the room, and I never saw them again. And we knew from then on it was her.
Again, looking back now, she served her time. She's out there on the street now. Does your family have any closure? Have you ever received any closure at all, or any peace at all?
Well, there's never any closure on a death of someone when you love someone. And the way that Bobby died, there's never going to be closure on it completely. Was justice served? No. She intentionally did this over a period of time and watched him suffer. That's the hard part, is watching someone suffer and there's nothing you can do about it. She could have done something about it. She could have stopped even doing it. And she didn't. She just kept giving it and giving it to him and making it worse and worse. The poor guy, he used to cry with pain. You couldn't even touch his hand to console him because he hurt so much with pain. And the only one that knew really what was going on was her, and she kept doing it.
And Susan, one last question. I remember there's so much information. It was so long ago, but a lot of the details and stories are still fresh in my mind as well. I had read somewhere or heard somewhere where, did Bob, your brother, say to somebody she's not, meaning referencing Joanne, when he was in the hospital, or that she's not what she appears to be? Did he suspect something?
That was, I think, the last dose that she gave him in the hospital. He knew something was wrong. I think he saw her put it in the drink, and then, she made him drink it. And I think at that point, he knew something was wrong. And that's when he told a nurse. I was gone already from the hospital, but I think he told a nurse, that he knew something was definitely wrong.
Okay, Susan Curley Grady, thank you very much for your time, and hope somehow your family gets peace and you get closure somewhere soon, or if ever.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for always caring and covering this story, because we do want Bobby's memory to stay alive in the community.
Okay, Joan Nardone brings us a high five. The high sign. Now, you could still hear the pain in her voice, Peter Paul, after all these years. And truth be told, she said she wanted to talk about it. Not that she was hesitating to do it, but she said, I still have all this pain after all these years. So, as life goes on, we never forget, but the families who are impacted by these cases, especially this one, you're supposed to feel safe at home. And that's where she was doing most of the spiking, correct? In the kitchen, probably.
Yeah, it was done when, she put the rat poison in his tea, and he drank it when he was at work, or he drank it wherever. But the iced tea and the thermos were the medium used to transfer. So yeah, and it was a horrible, 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 painful death, as Susan said, and something just virtually impossible for close family members to forget.
Now, I also understand, if I remember correctly, you did testing on his daughter at the time.
You did.
Wasn't it found in her system and the daughter and Joanne Curley's system?
Correct.
Was that purposely done that way, or do you think she just cross-contaminated?
Number one, what we know for sure is that we had our investigators take samples and test both Joanne and the young 10-year-old daughter for the presence of thallium. Both of those individuals, in fact, had thallium in their system. Our conclusion was that the presence in Joanne was based upon her handling of the rat poison itself and putting it into the tea. We believe that she actually intentionally gave her daughter some rat poison to try to evade suspicion by the investigators because she would never ever poison her own daughter.
Right.
That was simply false and untrue. But yes, they both had thallium in their systems.
And now to go back to Bob Curley, who was an electrician, and I'm told a really, really good one, working at Wilkes University in the lab. They were doing remodeling work, and we all heard about that. Initially, it was a practical joke done by one of his coworkers, spiking his iced tea at work. Expound on that a little bit. And that turned out not to be true, but ironically, the timing was unbelievable.
That took place before I was in office. But what essentially happened is investigators knew that he was working at the chemistry lab at Wilkes. They went to the chemistry lab and in fact found thallium at the lab. Now, you just don't find thallium in any place. You don't go to Walmart and buy thallium. It was in fact in that laboratory, and therefore they believed that the thallium in the lab was the source of the thallium that killed Bob.
Initially.
The question then became, if in fact it was the source, how did he come to ingest it? And the investigators at that time, the early investigators, did not believe that any coworkers intentionally put thallium in Bob's tea, but they learned through interviews that Bob was a practical joker. And Bob would do practical jokes on his coworkers at work, and in return, they would do practical jokes on him. And one of the theories that the investigators hypothesized was this a joke gone bad? Did the coworkers find the stallium, not realize what it was, maybe it had a funny taste to it, put it in Bob's tea, had him drink it, spit it out.
Got a good laugh.
They had a laugh at that. He had some, something in his tea, and ultimately that was the one ingestion that killed him. Well, obviously we know that wasn't true. It wasn't one ingestion that killed him, number one, and number two, it wasn't the thallium from the lab that he ingested, and number three, his coworkers had absolutely zero to do with this crime. So it did throw investigators, the fact that there was thallium in the lab did throw investigators a curveball, which led them in a direction which ultimately ended and was incorrect.
And maybe the timing for her, again, when did they believe that she started actually spiking his iced tea? I read some reports like in late 1990, like 8 or 9 months, 10 months beforehand.
Correct. It really didn't become obvious until until we did the exhumation and Dr. Reeders did the toxicology testing, and the testing showed that there was a methodical series of 11 poisonings over a lengthy period of time that definitively included poisonings in both Wilkes-Barre General and Hershey Medical Centers. At that point, she obviously was the focus of the investigation, and our job at that point was to exclude everybody else.
And it's interesting, again, we're talking about especially the last lethal dose given at Hershey. She had to suspect by that time something was going to happen. And correct me if I'm wrong, once you have thallium poisoning, you really can't survive that. Even if she didn't give that lethal dose, she probably would have died anyway.
Correct. Correct. I mean,
it's like radiation poisoning. You get so much, you die.
Keep in mind that he had in fact been diagnosed finally 2 days before with thallium poisoning.
Before the final dose.
Yes. So the medical staff was aware that thallium was killing him, and that was an issue because at that point they had no remedy available to save Bob. So whether he would have died without that final one, probably yes. But
at least there was hope. If she didn't give him that final dose in the hospital, you never know.
We know that she did it. We told her she did it, and ultimately, as a result of the plea, she admitted to doing it.
And we'll talk about the guilty plea when we come back. We're going to take a short break. You're watching the Michalczyk Files. My special guest today, attorney Peter Polashevsky, former Luzerne County DA and former Luzerne County judge who prosecuted Joanne Curley for the poisoning death of her husband, Bob Curley, back in 1991. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to the Mahal-Sheikh Files on 2822 Now app. We're streaming. We're talking today about the Bob Curley poisoning at the hands of his wife, Joanne Curley, who served time in prison. She was released like 9 years ago. My special guest today, attorney Peter Polashevsky. We have about 5 minutes left total. Let's run Joey, the story we did when she was released from prison, which came about. We were keeping an eye on it, but it happened like late at night. She was released from prison. Run that package.
Justice was not served with Joanne, but someday she will meet her maker and justice will be served.
Susan Curley Grady says 20 years behind bars was not enough punishment for the slow, painful death her brother Robert endured at the hands of Joanne Curley. This is a photograph of Curley leaving a state prison near Erie just after midnight. She has a hood over her face. It ends a bizarre story that began back in 1991. When she laced her husband's iced tea with rat poison. She was arrested in 1996, and as I reported then, she said she wasn't guilty. The prosecution says it will seek the death penalty for Joanne Curley. But there would be no trial. She confessed to killing her husband, pleaded guilty to third-degree murder, and was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. At the time, the Curley family wanted closure.
A third degree was accepted. She told us how she killed Bobby, and we needed to have answers at that point.
The prosecution's case was largely based on scientific evidence collected during the exhumation of Curley's body 2 years after his death. It showed that he was poisoned over a long period of time. Former Luzerne County District Attorney Peter Polashevsky wanted a first-degree conviction and a possible death sentence, but back then had concerns about the science involved.
That type of toxicology testing was never before admitted in evidence in any Pennsylvania courtroom. So the question for us was whether or not, when we went through a hearing, the court would find that evidence reliable enough to be admitted.
Okay, Peter Polashevsky back in, that was, I believe, 2016.
I looked pretty good back then, huh?
You do? How come I always look so old? I don't understand. Look at video, I'm like a young kid, but look at me now. Peter Paul, but again, you talk about all the passage of this time, but it's still people talk about it. And now as we're talking about here on this podcast, we'll go back over the stories that we've done in other media and say, how could this happen? How could someone be so cold to poison her own husband? You're supposed to be safe at home. We're talking about the guilty plea. Again, you mentioned in the package there, we have only a few minutes. Why take the guilty plea?
We were the team, the total investigation team. We were preparing for trial, and the defense, as expected, filed a challenge to the admissibility of the toxicology testing. That type of testing had never been admitted in Pennsylvania courtroom before, and more problematic is when Bob Curley was exhumed, his entire casket was filled with water. And so for a period of about 2 years, these hair and nail samples were submerged in water. And there was no ability to determine what effect that might have had on the evidence itself. So the concern out there was if this testing results don't get admitted into evidence, if it's suppressed, there's no case, and she walks with a not guilty verdict. While we were prepared to go to trial, we ultimately consulted with the Curley family, and that included his mother, his sister, his brother, and their counsel. And after lengthy discussions, I said to the family, I'll do what you want. If you want us to go to trial, we'll go to trial. The defense has offered us a plea of third-degree murder with a statutory maximum sentence of 20 years. We could take it, we could reject it and go to trial. And the family appreciated that gesture. They ultimately said they wanted closure, and they asked, could we get an interview with her where she admits truthfully to everything that happened? I was able to negotiate that with her counsel, and following her plea, she was interviewed, or prior to her plea, she was fully interviewed by me and the investigators. She admitted each and every step. She confirmed that our toxicology analysis was 100% accurate. She admitted to all those things, which gave the family a level of closure, and was sentenced to 20 years in prison, and she served every single day of it.
It's interesting. We're going to be wrapping up now, Peter Polashevsky, but the fact that she admitted to, I've covered so many cases. You, of course, prosecuted, presided over them as a judge. I think, and we've had tragedy in our family, you want to hear someone admit they did it.
Right.
That's almost not the most important thing, but if not the most important thing, pretty darn close. You want someone to say, I did it, and just admit to it.
And that's what Bob's mother wanted, first and foremost. And number two, the family, Bob's sister and brother were concerned about whether Mom would be able to make it through a 3-week trial of this nature.
Yeah. Okay, Attorney Peter Polashevsky, thank you so much for being part of our podcast today. There's so much more we can go into. We'll have you back. We'll talk about this case again and some other cases moving forward with our podcast because, like I said, you've handled some really interesting, fascinating cases, both on the defense side and prosecution side. So thank you, Peter Polashevsky, for coming in today. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Again, watch our Michalczyk Files, a whole bunch of stories in there that we've taken a deeper dive in over the last 35, 40, 45 years that I've covered Northeastern PA. For now, Andy Michalczyk, most importantly, have a safe day, and we'll see you later.
Tonight,
West Point has always been a very special place.
a Veterans Day special from inside America's most historic military academy. And taking a hard look at its most historic military leaders.
He wasn't a nice guy. He was tough, iron tough.
That's right, we're including the good, the bad, and the ugly.
He was a corrupt general with no skill set at all. It was horrible, horrible.
From the first war that founded the country
Washington is probably the greatest soldier in the United States history.
to a future war that could end the world.
You mess with the United States, we'd have vaporized you.
These are the generals who made the modern military ethos.
He was a macho man. The village people would have loved Andrew Jackson.
These are the leaders who are still teaching our soldiers what to do
Keep everybody organized and focus on the goal.
and what not to do.
Custer wasn't afraid and wound up dead in a ditch.
These are America's greatest warriors. Good evening, I'm Leland Vitter. In the Revolutionary War, George Washington realized holding this high ground over the Hudson River would decide the fate of our young nation. Since then, American soldiers have stood watch at West Point, and the United States Military Academy here has educated and formed America's greatest generals. And tonight, we reveal the temperament and the character that protected our nation since.
To me, West Point has always been a very special place, almost a sacred space in American history.
If you want to understand America's military tradition, you start at West Point. Today's cadets and tomorrow's officers train here on its famous plain, under the watchful gaze of the Academy's most celebrated graduates and some of our nation's greatest leaders.
General Washington, during the Revolution, he called West Point a key to the continent. He knew it was strategically valuable terrain, that we had to hold it to gain American independence. And ever since 1802, when the Military Academy was founded by Thomas Jefferson, West Point has maintained this prominence and preeminence.
Colonel Brian Gibby is the deputy head of the Department of History and War Studies.
We're the only military force on the planet in the history of the world that swears an oath to a piece of paper, to the United States Constitution. And we honor and recognize civilian control of the military as being a primary principle of our military ethos.
And that's different than any other country.
Yes.
Tonight, we want to look back at the men who both shaped and embodied that ethos. The great American warriors who have featured prominently in many of the books penned by America's most popular historian, Bill O'Reilly. A guy who knows that even the most lionized leaders are, like the rest of us, still imperfect people.
So our greatest warriors, generals, leaders, good and bad, all of them. And that's the human condition, the duality of man. But we mythologize in America our heroes. We make them into people that couldn't possibly exist. And that's my job, is to bring everybody down to earth.
We begin at the beginning with the general immortalized in so many statues, monuments, and even our money that it's hard to separate the layers of legend from the man. It's no surprise, right, that Washington is the one looking out on the plain.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Washington is probably the greatest soldier in the United States history. He exemplified, the principles of our military ethic, deference to civilian control of the military, and also the selfless service.
He was a warrior from a very young age, trained by the British.
French and Indian War.
And Washington gets shot 5 times. But he didn't stop. Washington didn't stop. Incredibly brave.
It was that character and his experience as a soldier that made Washington such an effective leader during the Revolutionary War as head of the Continental Army.
He is a commander, but he loves his soldiers, and he empathizes with them and their willingness to die for their cause, and he's not going to throw away their lives needlessly, which is somewhat in contrast to the aristocratic European tradition that was prevalent in the 18th century.
What does Washington do?
Well, I'll take two examples. The Battle of Trenton at the end of 1776. His army is literally about to dissolve because they signed up for 1 year, January to December. And the Continental Army had just been beaten and driven out of New York City and across New Jersey. And Washington recognizes this is it. If the army dissolves and we're losing, the revolution is over.
Remember, he was commanding not troops that were trained at West Point, not professional soldiers like the British had. He was commanding state militias mostly. Guys who were wearing, farm outfits, and they'd show up with a musket.
And so he talks to his officers and his men, and he convinces them, stay on for a little bit longer. Trust me, we're going to do something. And that's when he launches his surprise attack at Trenton and wins a great victory. And then he goes on 4 weeks later to win at Princeton.
Washington's speech to troops you quoted in Killing England. Let it never be said that in a day of action you turned your backs on the foe. Every motive that can touch the human breast calls us to the most vigorous exertions.
Yeah, Washington was a committed guy and saw the big picture that the colonists were getting hosed by the King of England, and he didn't want it.
That is exactly what the revolution needs. To get that shot in the arm that we actually can win this. And it's one of the few times where Washington, at the tactical level, at the battle command level, does pretty well. He loses most of the battles that he's engaged in, but when it really counted, at Trenton and Princeton, he wins. Saves the revolution.
Washington's leadership was never tested more than in the winter of 1777. But for Washington, the Continental Army would have collapsed at Valley Forge.
How he kept that together, I don't know any general in American history could have done what Washington did, because those men were literally starving, and it was freezing cold, and the families are screaming, "When are you coming home?"
Can you imagine if there was cable news back then?
Oh, my God. Washington kept them together just by sheer force of personality.
He expends a great deal of time and personal wealth to keep the Army alive and to keep it together. And once the Army emerges from Valley Forge, it's much stronger.
But don't kid yourself. Washington's leadership involved more than inspiring speeches.
But he had a dark side. George Washington had a dark side. You didn't want to get on his bad list. You did not. And when someone broke ranks, he'd hang you.
He ordered his own men hung.
Hung. In front of everybody. And that was part of his discipline. Washington was one tough SOB, except when it came to his wife, who pushed him around.
After leading our new nation to victory over the British, Washington would lead it as our first president, a position he crucially gave up after 2 terms, even though he probably could have held it for life. When you teach Washington at West Point, what do you hope they take from it?
I hope they get a sense for his modesty, his humility as a leader.
Anybody who doesn't admire George Washington is a loon. The guy is an incredible hero.
Andrew Jackson was one of the other generals to become president.
Right.
Now so many compare Donald Trump and Andrew Jackson. Is Trump like that?
Yeah, Jackson's his favorite president.
Why is he his favorite?
Because Jackson is a no BS guy. And Trump likes that style.
General Andrew Jackson became a national hero when he defeated the British in the War of 1812, facing impossible odds at the Battle of New Orleans.
When you go down to New Orleans, and every American should go and see that battlefield, what Jackson did down there, again, with just guys out of the woods, no trained West Point guys, he kicks the British right back into the swamps with a bunch of farmers. He knew how they were going to fight him, and he just outsmarted them, and it was a rout. It wasn't even close.
He's a very prominent general before becoming president. And as president, he manages to take an appetite suppressant on, I'm not a general anymore, I am a political figure, and I have to go about things a little bit differently.
He was a guy, Andrew Jackson, not well educated, okay? And he was all a guy, out of his gut. Now, you can take Jackson apart because what he did to Native Americans is horrible. Horrible.
President Jackson will forever be tied to the so-called Trail of Tears, the forced displacement of 5 southeastern tribes, which became a de facto extermination order.
He damn well knew that he was going to destroy these tribes by kicking them off the land in the South. He knew it, and he didn't care. You know, you can be a brilliant general and not a great guy.
Even when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Cherokee Nation's claim on its land, Jackson refused to enforce the ruling. O'Reilly sees a similar attitude in our current president.
I think that Jackson's personality was similar to Donald Trump's personality. That if you crossed Andrew Jackson, you know, get your pistol ready.
Might be a good quality for a general. Is it a good quality for a president?
Well, look, Jackson was a successful president since he was reelected. He was a populist. People loved him. They had confidence in him. Was he a great legislator? No.
Was he a great leader?
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, Jackson, when he showed up, Old Hickory, everybody got in line. And again, the mentality was they loved guys who were strong. So he was a macho man. The village people would have loved Andrew Jackson.
Coming up, America goes to war with itself.
I believe that that was the biggest test that America has ever had.
And two West Point graduates face off on opposite sides. That's next. It's the mid-1800s. The colonies have been liberated by George Washington, and the young nation has been strengthened by Andrew Jackson. But now the Civil War calls on new heroes to keep a fractured Union intact. General Ulysses S. Grant came from humble beginnings and rose to lead the Union Army against the rebellious South. His willingness to make hard decisions led him first to victory, then to the White House.
He was a hero of the Civil War. Without Grant, it might have been a stalemate because McClellan, who was the first commander, he was a coward, and his troops did not respect him. And then Lincoln went through 3-4 guys, and they were terrible. And finally, he drags Grant, who's out in the hinterlands, because this guy at least will fight.
Grant has an amazing story coming from modest beginnings in the Midwest, goes to West Point, doesn't want to go to West Point, doesn't want to be a cadet, but he gets in. And he's here for 4 years, and it turns out he's really good at horsemanship. He has a very good eye for terrain and can visualize that and then communicate that vision to others. Serves in the war with Mexico and demonstrates to himself, I can do this, I can be a soldier.
What do you teach about Grant that takes a man from leading armies west of the Mississippi and a no-namer to suddenly commanding the U.S. military and winning the Civil War?
Yeah. Grant, unique amongst the Union commanders, he was willing to engage in battle even when things were not necessarily set up for his success. And he has this vision. He's taken a lot of casualties, but he's doing what needs to be done to win the war.
Grant's counterpart for the Confederacy, Robert E. Lee, was, like Grant, a West Point graduate. But the two were a study in contrast.
In the Mexican-American War, when Lee and Grant met for the only time before Appomattox, Lee looked down on him. Look at this, because he didn't feel that he carried himself with the aristocracy that an officer should. As far as tactics are concerned, Lee was a much better tactician than U.S. Grant. Both very brave men, but Lee, he was brilliant in a way that he deployed his troops, motivated his troops.
There's no statue of Lee on West Point's plain, but dozens are still standing throughout the former Confederacy. Lee fought to keep slavery. He betrayed his country to do it, betrayed the oath that he took at West Point.
He did all that.
Is he worthy of the statues?
I think he is, in the sense that he did his duty to his state.
His oath wasn't to his state. His oath was to the Constitution of the United States.
True, but he made a decision. I think that in the South, there should be a historical legacy as an American warrior, not a philosopher, not a politician, as a warrior.
As a warrior, you don't mind the statues.
Right. I think both were honorable men down deep, my opinion, and certainly a lot of people disagree with me, but I think both were honorable men.
West Point teaches so much about the art of soldiering and the art of war. Grant was also known for his art in victory, of letting Lee's army at Appomattox keep their guns and keep their horses. Is that part important to teach too?
Yes, absolutely, because it's one thing to win the battles, to win the war. You also have to win the peace. And so that gesture that he makes, I think, really set the conditions that the Union can be stitched back together and we could have the country that we have today.
I believe that that was the biggest test that America has ever had, but we came through it.
Of course, not every soldier fights for duty or honor. Some, like George Custer, do it for glory.
George Custer epitomized every good thing about war and every bad thing about war. Bravery, camaraderie, sacrifice, the bad things, savagery and death, destruction, sadism. And Custer, more than any other American commander, epitomized both.
And he loved war.
Loved it.
Custer's class of 1861, He's the bottom of his class, but he knows how to interact with others. He knows how to be aggressive and take risks. And within 4 years, he's a general officer of volunteers and breveted, by an honorary general in the Civil War, and is fighting, some of the major campaigns towards the end of the war.
Very young guy, troops respect him, flamboyant, doesn't dress in a traditional military uniform, so he's got a little jaunty hat on or a feather.
This is George Custer speaking. I challenge the annals of warfare to produce a more brilliant or successful charge of cavalry. Dear God.
He loved himself. He was in it for the glory. And so that it worked in a structure where he answered to other people.
However, every virtue, when taken to extremes, becomes a vice, and daring is no exception. In Custer's case, it proved to be both his superpower and his fatal flaw.
Once he went west, he didn't answer to anybody. And then the arrogance took over, and the cruelty took over. And that's what did him in.
What made him so different in battle than anybody else? Was he just a lunatic?
Yeah, he was absolutely crazy. You don't go in with 250 guys and fight 5,000 Native Americans who hate you. All right, those are not odds you want.
By 1876, Custer had a well-earned reputation for slaughtering Native American women and children. At the Battle of Little Bighorn, the Lakota war leader, Crazy Horse, gave Custer a taste of his own medicine.
Custer wasn't afraid and wound up dead in a ditch.
Custer has a monument in the cemetery here at West Point.
A monument in the cemetery, that's not exactly prized ground.
The plate says, "Here lies General George Armstrong Custer, killed with his entire command." Not necessarily what you want to be recognized for.
So a couple of lessons learned. Duty is essential, but it's no excuse for blind loyalty to an unjust cause. And daring is a valuable quality in moderation. Coming up, the men who modernized the military and turned the United States into a global superpower.
Perhaps the best general in American history.
That's next. from muskets to missiles. For America to stay free, its military must continuously adapt. Credit for our modern military ethos that prioritizes discipline and training goes to World War General John Pershing.
Pershing is the first general of the armies. He's recognized as having the stature of leading, really for the first time, a significant American army overseas to engage in a world war. He has more men under his authority, over 1 million, that he takes to France. And he really puts America on the world stage in the early 20th century for what he does in World War I.
Black Jack. They called him Black Jack because he commanded an African-American battalion in World War I. Racism was huge in the early part of the 20th century in America. Not for Pershing. He was respected by his black troops. He trained his black troops. He went to battle with them, and they loved him. But he wasn't a nice guy. He was tough, iron tough.
But he was also iron cool, right? Theodore Roosevelt on Pershing, the coolest man under fire I ever saw in my life.
That's right. And that's why when Roosevelt got to be president, he elevates Pershing to general of the armies.
What is the lessons of Pershing that are so important, not just for cadets at West Point, but for America?
That America has a role to play. The British and the French wanted American troops, but they did not want an American army. And Pershing was very insistent that the United States had its own.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Joe's Jukebox. It is episode 4, and I have my lovely friends in Foch here today. It's a family affair at the 2822 Now Streaming Center. We have Nico, Luca, and Dante Schwartz, 3 brothers that are all in the same band. Hi guys, how you doing?
How's it going, Joey?
What's up?
So, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on. It was going to happen sometime, going to happen eventually. But if you don't know, I am in a band of Kansas Ad Trees, and Foch are very good friends of us. 2 members in my band, Maddox and Stone, have been friends with the Schwartzes for a very, very long time. And, you know, I got introduced to them, and we became friends again, and we're sharing band members, and we share tours. We share almost everything with these guys. What do you think?
Anything we don't share is kind of not as good. It's just the best, you know, playing shows with you guys and practicing and all that stuff.
Yeah, especially now, like we don't really play shows as much now, so it's like whenever we get an opportunity, we just like hope it's with you guys, and that's why we're so excited for the one coming up, because we love playing with you guys, and like the most fun part is just like having like the gang all back together, like having Stone in, and it's always just a good time.
Yeah, so Stone plays drums for If Kansas Had Trees, and he plays drums for Foch. Luca plays guitar and sings in Foch, and he also plays guitar often in If Kansas Had Trees. And Nico has been known to play bass every now and then.
Yeah, I played bass. The first show I ever played was I played bass for you guys at Rockology.
Yeah.
And then I have filled in a couple times on guitar, but I think that's pretty much a thing in the past now. I always give it to Luca.
You never know. You never know.
So yeah, but what Foch is the 3 brothers plus Stone. And tell me, what's everybody's role in Foch?
So I'm like one of the lead vocalists, and I do rhythm guitar.
I do like lead guitars and harmonies mostly, and then some random stuff, but those are the 2 main things.
I just play bass for us live, and I just sing on a few songs.
You're one of the lead singers.
Yeah. Come on.
Cool. So yeah, appreciate you having you on here, and thanks for coming out. It is Black Friday on the day that we're recording this, so a little after the holidays, maybe a little sluggish because after Thanksgiving. But you were mentioning show coming up, and I know all the details, but the people listening do not. What is coming up on December 6th?
All right, well, yeah, so on December 6th, we are playing a show with If Kansas Had Trees in Morgantown, and the significance behind this show is that, like, our best friend Maddox, and he's obviously, as Joey mentioned, in Kansas, he's graduating from West Virginia in December, So this is like his final, like last hurrah send-off show in Morgantown. So like he's having all of his friends come out. We're gonna try and make it a really wild show. So we're just it's also the first time we've gone to play with Kansas in a long time. Like our friend, like Stone's gonna be in. Our buddy Roman, who's also like, it would be wrong to not give Roman a shout out on this podcast. He helps their band out and our band out a lot. So we're just all gonna be together. Probably we're just have a real good time. It's gonna be a really fun show.
It's a great venue too. 123 Pleasant. Great sound, great vibes. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be if Kansas had Tree's third time playing 123 Pleasant, and is it Foch's first or is it your second?
It's our second. We actually we played the first. When was it that we played? Was it like last winter,
fall or winter or something? Yeah.
It was last whenever. But it was we actually didn't play with Kansas. But it was a really fun show. I think Maddox actually filled in on bass for us that show.
Yeah,
it was a really fun show. It's a great venue, great sound.
That
they
show
got a bar, which is really nice.
Yeah, that show is the show that kicked off Maddox's bass playing career. Actually, I believe that was the first time he played bass.
Actually, the first time Max played bass was our very first show ever. He played for us like back in 20. I have no idea.
21.
21. So the first Rockology show?
No.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
That was the first show we ever played. We were on our ugly Christmas sweaters.
Yeah.
And we played Your Graduation, and we covered the middle, and then played Second to When You're Gone. That was our full set.
Yeah, that's all right. So to give us a little breakdown for people who don't know who Foch is. What would you say your sound is? I just did air quotes. You didn't see me. What is your sound? What do you? When people ask me this question in our band, I have no idea how to answer it. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think? Who do you compare yourselves to? What do you think your genre is, and all that kind of stuff?
It is a tough question to answer, and it's one that like you really try not to sound insufferable when answering it. But I would say generally we're a pop punk / emo band. Alternative rock. We have a lot of '90s influence. At least I'd like to think that. Yeah. What do you?
Yeah, I think if you really like peel everything back, the roots really come down to '90s alt rock. Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, Weezer, and then in liking those bands and being from Northeast PA, obviously there's a lot of more recent influences like Toto Fight, Tiger's Jaw. Exactly what
Modern
you'd expect.
baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you did a better job than I do when people ask me what I sound like. So yeah. You have a couple of releases already out. There's music that you can listen to. There's also potentially music incoming in 2026. But you guys, out of anybody that I know, are the most critical of yourselves when it comes to talking about your own music. And I just want to say I find the EP and the entire album both absolutely great, but you guys have different opinions. So
we appreciate that. First of all,
thank you for hyping us up. Yeah, I'm happy to like elaborate on that.
Yeah.
He'll talk about it forever.
Yeah, don't let me go on for too long. But so we put out our first EP. I think it was in the fall of 2022, and it was just a collection of like 6 songs that we kind of had on the back burner for a while. Kind of stuff we started writing like I think my senior year of high school, his sophomore year. And it's like looking back on it, we actually all really enjoy that EP. Like we think there are like really good songs on there that I'll still sometimes go out of my way to listen to now and then. I think they're good fun songs. They're simple.
I think sometimes just your first release, like there's some sort of like magic that you capture. Sometimes just like you don't really know anything about anything, and sometimes that comes out bad. But in this case, I think it actually worked out to create some cool kind of vibes.
Dante, any thoughts?
Big fan of Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, I still think it's one of our best songs and kind of something we're trying to do more with our sound now.
If you're curious for what's to come, just listen to Dreamcatcher. It's pretty much exactly what's to come.
But
cool. So you guys, bit on the younger side, especially Dante. So people that I was telling my coworker, I'm like, I got Foch, and he's like, who's that? And he's like in his 30s, and I'm like, they're what's next? They're the young and up and coming guys. Now, Nico, you're not that younger than me, but Dante, you're still in high school, if I'm not correct, if I'm not wrong, right?
Senior.
Yeah, so you're in your senior year of high school right now. Are you looking to colleges?
Yeah.
That's crazy. How's that going?
It's going well. I think I'm going to plan on going to Westchester.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Nice. You don't have to verbally commit anywhere on Joe's jukebox. But that's cool to hear. But yeah, Nico, Luca, how old are you guys?
I'm 23.
I'm 20.
Yeah. So when you guys play bars and stuff, do you ever come into situations where it's like, we got a high schooler, our guy's 20, and but our lead singer's 20, or one of our singers is 23. So whatever. I mean, because like you've played the V spot before, and there's no problems there.
Yeah.
But there's other places that give you hard times, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm
right?
always getting problems.
Yeah.
I'm always getting problems. I'm like 6 months away, and like it's like an event if I'm just playing a show at a bar usually.
It was just like that one of those shows we played together in the summer, where we played that place in Philly, and they were like, they basically almost didn't let us play, and then they're like, they compromised and let us play, but then they were like, you could like, we weren't allowed to like hang around before our set. We like had to go in, play our set, and then they told us basically just get like the F out, and we couldn't even like watch our friend's set, and that was like kind of annoying.
They were serious about it. Like they really followed me around and like came to look for me and stuff, and like it was funny. They were actually looking for me, but like I get it, you know. You gotta follow rules, you know, different places might have different reasons for that, but it isn't consistent, so sometimes you get into funny situations like that.
Yeah, you kind of have to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what makes me angry about that is literally, it might have been 6 months before. So we played that show together, If Kansas Had Trees and Foch, Wild Red in 23-19. That was an awesome bill in Philly, but we sent an email literally months and months in advance. Hey, Foch has guys that are under 21. Like, is this cool? Whatever. And the manager's like, yeah, no problem. Like, you'll be fine. I'll let everybody who's working know. The second we get there, the bouncer's like, you're not allowed in here, dude. And it was like,
he was acting like so like holier than thou, and like he acted like when he let me in, he was like doing me a huge favor. And it's like, we cleared this, dude. Like we were allowed to do this.
What drove me crazy, I was like, we put up the email, like, call this manager. He's gonna be mad at you for bothering him right now because it's a Saturday or it's a Friday or a Saturday night. And like, he's gonna be mad that he's gonna tell you exactly the same thing we're showing you in this email right now. And they're like, yeah, we'll see about that. And so,
it's so funny too. Like, I don't think there could be a person in the world you'd be less worried about drinking than me. Like, I'll literally be like, put X's on my hands. Like, I have no intention of drinking. I'm the driver half the time. Like, I don't care, and I'm still just like, I get problems.
yeah, and that show Dante wasn't there though, right?
That was a Roman show.
I think that's why sometimes I've gotten more of those, because Dante just hasn't been able to make all of them, just being in high school and stuff.
Yeah, I think any bar show here with Dante, it's just been one like around here, like at the V spot or something, where like there hasn't been issues.
It's funny though. I think there was the one.
I had an issue once.
You did?
I think you were just going to see Kansas.
It was at a Kansas show.
And he was like confined to the merch area.
Oh yeah,
I had to watch it on that little screen in the back.
Where was that?
Cut out. It was at the V spot.
Oh, really? It was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they might have kind of laxed up as
Yeah.
the night went on a little bit, but
I mean, at least that was a show where we weren't actually playing that. I think that was a show you guys were playing, and
it's
he
a
was
little
just kind of
different.
coming as like a fan. So
Yeah.
And you get that. Everyone has their reasons for it, you know. I do kind of get it.
I mean, I also get it. You don't want to have underage. You don't want to be letting underage people into your bar.
Yeah.
But if you're also gonna be like, hey, we're gonna pay this band to play at our place, it's like, and they happen to be underage, it's like, put yourself in an awkward situation. But hey, that puts you in a good spot. If you're the one stirring up issues that because you're too young, like, you know what, you're just on. That means you're on the right path.
exactly, exactly.
I want to hear a little bit about how the songwriting process goes with Foch, because everybody does it differently. We have our way. We just had Pucker up on. They were talking about how they do it. The Pollen guys, they're super cool. They were talking about how, like, and it's just interesting to hear everybody's different perspective on how they write their own music. And is it typical? Is there a usual outline of what happens? Does somebody come in with a riff? Or do you guys have like full songs done? I know it's different now a little bit more because you don't live in the same house anymore. But what's the vibe? What's usually happening when you guys are writing music?
I think the best way to say it, like globally, like in general, is like we have a few main formulas that we follow, And I think one of them, sometimes it starts with me. Like you said, I come with a riff or like a musical song. And a lot of times I'll then give it to one of these two to kind of like write the lyrics and kind of really turn it into more of a song than just like a musical thing. And then you do your own thing sometimes.
Yeah, like sometimes Don and I also like kind of have like the basic outline of a song written, and then we'll like kind of take it to Luca and Stone, and like he'll add leads and like Stone will add drum parts and whatnot. So those are kind of the two main formulas that we've followed for the most part. But we are also kind of just trying to like let things, like for this time around, for our newer stuff, kind of let things come more organically, just kind of in a jam room with Stone, and just kind of letting things come together more naturally. Remember we had a really good songwriting, like last summer, we had like a really, really good songwriting session in Roman's basement. We like three of all the songs did like exist to a certain degree before this, but it was just three of us and Stone. We went into Roman's basement and like we just finished the three of them in one sitting, and it was just like
that was awesome. That was such a great feeling. But I think like just to sum, like one of us will come with like the baseline idea of a song, and then everyone else will come in and then finish it. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's like kind of the overarching main formula.
That's cool. So somebody brings the main idea in, and then it expands from there together.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
super collaborative. I love that. So we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about maybe some of your favorite shows you've played, maybe some of your least favorite shows you've played. Who knows? I know you guys have some good stories, but we'll be right back. You're watching Joe's Jukebox. Hello and welcome back to Joe's Jukebox. I am your host, Joe Nardone, joined today by possibly the favorite music friends in the scene. It's Foch, Nico, Dante, and Luca, the brothers that make up Foch, including Stone, the drummer. He is not here today. He lives in Chicago now. So that's tough. That's tough because he's also my drummer. So we all know how that feels. But
we all miss him very much.
Yeah, we do miss him a lot. Stone, if you do listen to this, maybe it's gonna be in 6 months when you finally get time to do it. We do miss you, bro. But yeah, Foch here on Joe's Jukebox. How you guys feeling so far?
Good. Yeah, we're feeling great.
Good.
It's fun.
Great time.
First time I've been on a podcast.
Cool.
Second time.
I think you've done one before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Second time.
Yeah.
That was the one who was on Zoom.
Yeah.
And Dante looked
oh,
like
yeah,
he was
that was
in a
actually a really
dungeon.
fun one too. That was a great. I'm 23 now. I'm getting all my memories going.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, man. But before we hit break, I wanted to talk about some of your favorite shows. We'll talk about some of maybe your not as favorite shows, but I want to hear the good first. What are some standout Foch shows? I know, Luca, you're playing a bunch of bands now, so it might get mixed, it might get blurred, but for Foch, what are some of your favorite Foch memories?
I would say I do think like the best show I ever played was last summer, like summer 24, with you guys when we were on our little mini tour and we played that Philly show. That was unreal.
Yeah,
the energy was crazy. Like the one and only time I've ever been at a show where people who I'd never seen before in my life like knew the words to our songs. That was wild.
Yeah, when I saw people singing, I was like, "What's going on? Like, I don't know these people." Like once in a while, you'll get it around here, and you kind of recognize the people. But that was an awesome feeling at that show. The energy was just amazing too. That tour had a couple of really good ones. That was on 2 summers ago. We did a tour with Kansas. Another great one was in Pittsburgh at one of our favorite old venues, U.S.A. It was also just a house. It was a very similar vibe, actually. And it was just great energy, just awesome vibes, just so much fun.
Yeah, a couple of the best shows that we've ever played have been at U.S.A. in Pittsburgh. We love playing there.
And also, you got to go back to our very first one with just the greats in Estacota and University Drive. That they really helped give us our start, and that was just a great show with a couple of our favorite bands ever. Really like introduced us to the scene and everything.
Yeah, that was like the first it was the second show we ever played, and the first kind of big show. We were really just playing our own stuff that we ever played, and it was so much fun. Yeah.
I think Dante was like 14 at the time or something.
I was. And I
remember
my guitar cut out.
I was before you even played guitar on stage. You just had a guitar as a prop.
Yeah.
It wasn't plugged in.
Well, it was supposed to be for Visionary Dream.
Yeah. Oh, but you
it was plugged in. I don't think you stepped on the distortion pedal or something.
Yeah,
so it was just a completely clean signal, and stuff happens. Still one of our best shows.
It happens.
That's awesome. Was that a Clarky's Billiard show? Is that
no? We have played with UD at Clarky's Billiards, and it was a great show. That was
Keystone Stage.
Keystone Stage.
That was a cool spot. We've only played there once, but that was awesome.
That's up near where JL Studios.
Yeah, it's almost right on the same street.
Same building, actually, I think.
Yeah, so got to give a huge shout out to JL Studios, Joe Oftis and Jay Preston. I mean, 2 awesome guys in the first spot, but amazing sound engineers and recording. Like they've recorded everything Foch has done. They've recorded the If Kansas Had Trees album, and I haven't heard anything come out of that studio that I haven't been like, that sounds nice.
Yeah, we can't talk good. We can't say more good things about them. They're so, I mean, first and foremost, like Joey said, just great dudes, just so easy to work with, very supportive, and they know what they're doing. They get you sounding right. Now Luca, he knows more about actually producing and sound, so he could probably speak more on that. But yeah, they get us sounding right, and we love going there.
They just do it right. They know exactly how to make things sound good, but they don't ever overdo it. They know how to give you the sound that you need, and they're just very accommodating too. I remember when we first time we ever recorded there, we were kind of in over our heads, had no idea what to expect, and not only did they make us feel comfortable, but they actually made us sound really good. So they really are the best there.
Yeah, like you said, I can't say enough good things about them. If you're looking to record locally, it doesn't break the bank either.
It's so reasonable, and for us at our age, that's so important for us too. It's just awesome.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of money, and it was affordable, and I think they understand that, and they're there to just help you get your songs sounding good.
Yeah, totally. So we've talked about good shows. What about some of the more dubious and not as exciting shows? Because listen, we've all been there. We've all played stinkers. But was there any that have I know you have a couple fun stories that you like to talk about.
There's 2 in particular that come to my mind.
Yeah,
it's the Bad Philly one. Remember?
Oh my God, I forgot about that one. Yeah,
and then the Baltimore one.
Baltimore. There's got to be one at Roboto too.
Dude, we also there have been some stinkers out in Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, we played some. Yeah,
but some great ones too. Not hating, but yeah, I think the first one that for me I think because I booked it. It was also on that tour we were talking about a couple summers ago, and of course Maddox basically did everything, booked everything, literally did everything. I was like, I got Baltimore, I got it, and it was terrible. Literally 0 people showed up. There was no one in the crowd.
We literally played to if Kansas had trees, and then the 3 members of the other band, and that was it. There was
and their 2 girlfriends.
Their 2 girlfriends.
Can't forget about those 2
that
girlfriends that were there.
But outside of that, nobody, literally nobody came.
And what's crazy about that show was that it was during Pride Month, and there was a drag show going on, and the bar, we were playing upstairs, and there was a bar below us, and it was packed. It was awesome. I went down there. I was like, I want to watch this, because they were just having the most fun time. It looked like an awesome show, and then they're like making so much noise, and it was like at some points it was so quiet upstairs where we were playing, like you heard the like bar downstairs going crazy, and we were just like, oh man. But you know what? We remember that one more than like some of the other shows.
I know. Like I look back on that fondly. It was fun.
Dude, remember the people on horseback?
Yeah,
dude, there were people going down the. You tell.
I mean, like we're just like in the city in Baltimore. It was. Who was it? Were any of you guys?
No, I missed like almost all the funny moments that happened on that tour.
No, I didn't see. It was you and Maddox.
It was me and then Maddox and Stone. We were in the van, like getting a snack or something, and we just looked down the street, and there's just like this group of guys just riding down the street on horseback. It was.
Yeah. I mean, this is like Baltimore. This is right in the middle of the city.
Yeah,
like
we weren't in like the Amish country. This is like right in Baltimore. It was hysterical.
But
it was awesome.
I think that feeling. This is like Nico mentioned that very first Philly one we did. Like, you get there, you're like, all right, obviously no one's there yet. You're just hanging out, having a good time. You start looking around. You're like, no one's gonna come. You're like, you get the realization of like, no one's here yet, and it's like 2 minutes from doors, and we still have to play. But it's always fun in its own way. It's always fun in its own way.
Yeah, I mean that show. There's always the danger of the mixed bill too.
True.
People love a mixed bill. A lot of people love mixed bills. Mixed bills are awesome. We love playing with hardcore bands, and those are always super fun shows. But then there's on the other side of the mixed bill is the one where it's too much of a genre blend, too much going on, and nobody cares. And that's the one that stinks. But yeah. We could talk about booking shows and some stinkers a lot, but I want to focus on some more positive stuff. New music coming up. Yeah. Will it be released in 2026? Are we?
We hope so.
No, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Winter of 2026, you're gonna get that'll be at least the start of the new songs.
Mm-hmm.
We have 6 now that are, I would say 99.9% recorded, mixed, mastered, all of it. And now we just have to go back and make a couple edits right after Christmas, and it should be rolling out like pretty much right after.
So you have studio time booked?
Yeah, we have like
2 days in the winter.
I think we have 2 days to kind of go back and just finish up those 6 songs, and then after that, like hopefully sometime over the spring and summer, kind of go back and like do 6 more and kind of like get it like somewhere like the 10 to 12 song range of.
So you're looking for another album then?
Yes, like that's the end goal.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we're really excited about these songs. I think, like you said, we tend to be a little critical, but I think we're all, for the first time, in agreement. Like, 6 months out of actually recording them now, we're like, we still like these songs. We really like these songs.
I still, we were like, we recorded them in the summer, and I still don't hate them yet. So that's like a really good sign.
For Nico, I mean,
it's crazy for Nico.
I can't believe he's saying that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we're excited. We're very excited about them.
There is I've heard a couple of them now, and there are some really awesome songs in there. So I'm excited. We'll have when the album's coming out, we'll have you back on, and then we'll get. If anyone's wondering, Joe's Jukebox does not have any music playing on the shows yet, but in the future we're gonna have music on the show, so, which makes I think sense. But when we get, by the time their album's coming out, we'll be able to play a couple tracks off of that.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
And we'll show them on the podcast, and we'll get the date. We'll get to hear them on here. Maybe we'll get you on a little before, and we'll debut them. That would be fun.
That would be really fun.
That's actually a great idea.
Awesome. Little sneak preview of the album on Joe's Jukebox.
I like that idea.
Cool. So, and there is no feeling like listening to your unreleased music like on like you have to like pull up your like downloaded files and and like that, and then you show them to like your friends and family and stuff.
Oh, it's so fun.
And there is nothing like that feeling. So I appreciate me being one of the people that got to listen to some of these tracks beforehand. So thank you guys. Foch has a lot of great stuff coming up. They'll be in West Virginia on December 6th, but they will be playing more as they get closer to releasing more music. And just follow them. Where should we follow you to get all the most updated Foch information?
I would just probably our Instagram.
Yeah, Foch.band. It should come right up, hopefully.
Yeah, that's definitely where we do the most posting, and yeah, any information, any shows, releases, it's all on the Instagram.
All right, cool. Well, thank you to my very good friends Nico, Luca, and Dante for coming on to Joe's Jukebox today.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hey, love you guys, and I knew that when I was starting this show, I knew he was gonna have you on. So, thank you so much for Foch for coming on the show. We'll have more Joe's Jukebox as it further on develops. We'll get music playing on here soon. And thank you for tuning in. Joe Nardone here with Nico, Luca, and Dante from Foch. Have a great rest of your time and stay safe.
Watch the president's speech live.
2822 News Night Shift starts right now.
Hello, Pennsylvania.